Hello, ladies. It's 2021. We're going to start this new year off with a 4-part video series. This video series is about underactive thyroid or hypothyroidism. So what I want to kind of accomplish in this video series is I want to talk about, could you have a thyroid problem? If you do, how do you talk to your doctor about it? How do you speak to them and get the answers that you need? What kind of labs do you order? That's going to be part 1. Part 2 is if you're diagnosed with a hypothyroidism or underactive thyroid, what do you do? Like, what do we do next, right? So when you see your doctor, they're going to put you on medication, but then what do you do after that? So the last of the 3 parts, part 2, 3, and 4, are going to be about making those changes in both nutrition, lifestyle, and mindset to try to improve or boost your thyroid function. So today's topic is about, do you have a hypothyroidism? Is your thyroid performing like it should? And so I want to start out first by saying that there are a lot of different causes for low thyroid or underactive thyroid. Hashimoto's thyroiditis is just one of those. And as you guys know, I've struggled with this problem since 2009. I was trying to conceive my second child at that time. It took well over a year and a half, and I just couldn't get pregnant, even though it was very simple for my first child. And during that time, a fertility doctor that I had seen suggested I get thyroid testing. And not surprising, a lot of people struggle with this too, but the thyroid tests were normal. But we decided to dive a little deeper at that time because I knew something was wrong. I mean, it took over a year and I couldn't get pregnant. And I was a pretty healthy person. So we actually ordered thyroid antibody test. And the thyroid antibody test came back in the thousands. And that is very abnormal. I mean, typically you don't see it over, definitely not over 100, but it was in the thousands. So despite my labs being normal, besides my TSH, which is the standard diagnostic test that people use, my thyroid antibodies indicated I had some sort of what we call subclinical hypothyroidism, or basically my labs look normal, but I clearly had a problem. So at that time I was placed on Synthroid, and lo and behold, I was able to conceive my second son, which is a story that I know a lot of people have. A lot of patients and clients come to me and we talk about this because they struggle with infertility, and hypothyroidism or low thyroid function is a very common cause of infertility. It's also a very common cause for people continuing to take fertility medicine but still not being successful. So that's why it's a very common thing that people check when they're seeing a fertility doctor. So what are the symptoms of hypothyroidism? Well, the first, very most common symptom you hear from everybody is fatigue. And not like I'm tired, I need to go take a nap, but like you slept 14 hours and you could sleep 14 more hours. Like it is a crazy fatigue that your whole body is exhausted, that you could take 5 cups of coffee and you still could sleep another 10 hours. It's crazy how exhausting it is. The other common symptoms that people describe are constipation issues or digestive issues. They have bloating, they have constipation, they don't have regular bowel movements. They have a lot of stomach issues. The other common symptom is cold and heat intolerance. So they're either really, really, really cold all the time and everybody else is fine, or they're super hot, almost like hot flashes, that their temperature regulation is off and it's very different than everybody else's in the room. If you have hypothyroidism, you know what I'm talking about. It is, I mean, everybody else can be wearing blankets and you're over there peeling layers off, and people usually say, what's wrong with you? Why are you, how could you possibly be hot? So hot and cold intolerance is another one. Sometimes people have symptoms of like achy joints. They wake up and they feel very achy and almost like an arthritis symptom, feel kind of like they have numbness in their fingers or their toes. They have a lot of those nerve kind of symptoms. Sometimes people have hair loss, that their hair just falls out, that they, try vitamins and they try different shampoos, but it just falls out all the time. Sometimes people have symptoms that are even more extreme, like maybe low libido, or they have brain fog, and just feel like they just can't kind of grasp what they need to grasp and struggle at work. A very common symptom of hypothyroidism is anxiety and depression, mood disorders. And oftentimes patients will say, well, I was put on a medicine for anxiety, but I still have difficulty with sleeping. I still have a hard time sleeping. I just feel like I have anxiety and depression. So those are all really, really common symptoms of hypothyroidism. And these are definitely symptoms that you need to talk to your doctor to get checked. So that kind of brings me to the next step, which is when you go to your doctor, what do you say? And I always tell patients, like, tell me all the symptoms, just list them all out for me, because a lot of times these symptoms can often get confused with other disorders. This is why sometimes it takes a very long time to pick up people with hypothyroidism, to find them that they've been to their doctor several times and didn't get the answer, because it's oftentimes those symptoms overlap with other diseases and disorders. So you have to be able to just list them all. So write them down and bring those symptoms to your doctor. I will say, obviously I'm an OB/GYN and I practice traditional medicine, but I also think outside the box. That's why I take functional medicine and integrative nutrition courses. So I want to encourage you to talk to your doctor about specific labs. So I'm going to bring this up. This is my, let's see, we'll share my screen. Let's, there we go. So I did this presentation. It's called Thriving with Hashimoto's Workshop. And basically it is a workshop that you can look at in the comfort of your own home. And it's going to go over exactly what I'm talking about. It's going to talk about all 4 steps of what we're going to go through in the video series, but in depth, and also provides PDF handouts and workbooks. So if you're interested in this course, you need to go over to my website and look for Thriving with Hashimoto's Workshop. I'll put a link in these videos, all of these 4 videos, so you can check it out. So if this applies to you, please check out the course. So thyroid testing. There's a lot of thyroid testing. It can be kind of controversial talking about thyroid testing. That's because if you go to your doctor, they'll typically check a TSH. And by the way, these slides are from that workshop as well. A TSH is called a diagnostic screen, or it's a test that we do to screen for thyroid problems. My opinion is that the problem is there are people like me who the TSH is completely normal, but they have symptoms and they're struggling with hypothyroidism. So it misses a lot of people that where their thyroid gland is not completely being affected yet or being damaged, but they're on their way. And for those patients, it's really, really important that they get more than one test checked, because they don't want to live miserable for a while. They want to get the answers that they want. So I suggest that you talk to your doctor about checking these 4 tests: TSH, free T4, free T3, and reverse T3. The reason is because if you're someone like me who suffered from subclinical hypothyroidism, or your labs were normal, but you still had the symptoms and you were well on your way to becoming hypothyroid, then these will become abnormal. You'll see those trends in those other tests. And so I encourage you to talk to your doctor about checking all 4 tests and not just one. Typically, these are checked in what's called a thyroid panel, and that's available in any doctor, primary care. And now, if you're not comfortable seeing a traditional doctor, then a naturopathic doctor can check these for you, or a functional medicine practitioner can check. So when I say doctor, I mean healthcare professional. It's normal for me to reference doctor just because that's what I am. But certainly, if you have a different healthcare professional that you're comfortable with, please see them and don't feel like I'm saying that you have to see a traditional doctor. So TSH is the hormone that's secreted from the brain that tells the thyroid what to do. So obviously it has to be very abnormal. The thyroid function has to be very abnormal for the TSH to become abnormal. That's why I suggest you checking free T4 and free T3, which are the 2 thyroid hormones that are secreted from the thyroid. So they're released from the thyroid to tell your body what to do. And by the way, your thyroid is involved in every system in your body. It's involved in reproduction. It's involved in metabolism. It's involved in your hot and cold, energy. It's involved in your brain function. It's involved in your gut function. I mean, it's involved in everything. So that's why all these symptoms you hear about are all, hypothyroidism causes a symptom for every one of those. Reverse T3 is important because it tells your practitioner how good is your body at converting T4 to T3. So it tells us how is that conversion, because we should see both T4 and T3 circulating in your blood. If we don't, the reverse T3 is really important in managing those medications. Then other two tests that I want to mention are antibody tests. So if you're somebody like me who had your TSH and it was normal, antibody tests actually check for the most common type of hypothyroidism, which is Hashimoto's. Hashimoto's is an autoimmune disorder, which means that your body attacks itself, that you actually have this problem because your body thinks that your thyroid is abnormal, that it's not part of its own body. So thyroid antibodies is the only way that you can detect hypothyroidism, and certainly in the opposite effect, hyperthyroidism, too much thyroid hormone, Graves' disease, is also detected by antibody tests. So it's kind of like step one, do those 4, step 2, antibody test. And thyroid hormones, I just want to mention quickly, T4, T3 are all part of TSH. Are all part of the components of the 2 hormones that are released from your thyroid, and TSH is released from the part of your brain that tells your thyroid what to do. Let me stop sharing there. Okay, so we've talked about, could you have a thyroid problem? Is it your thyroid? I mentioned the symptoms that are associated with hypothyroidism, and then how to talk to your doctor. The 2 key summary points for that is, 1, bring a list of symptoms. List them all out. Just write them down. Sometimes you don't think that they're important, but they're important to make the physician kind of go ding, 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 ding. So bring that list to your healthcare professional. Second key point on that, ask for those labs. Even though they may think that TSH is fine and that TSH is an adequate test, I recommend that you ask them for the thyroid panel, the full panel, because I do think if you're truly suffering from those symptoms, it's possible that your TSH is normal, but your other labs are not. And, I don't think that you should have to suffer for an additional year or 2 or however long it takes for your TSH to become abnormal, because if you're miserable, you're miserable. And if you suffer from hypothyroidism, you know how exhausting and fatigue is, and how, having your hair fall out and constipation and being miserable, no one should have to go through that. So I suggest that you ask them for those particular labs. On part 2 of this series, I'm going to talk about, if you got diagnosed with hypothyroidism, then, they put you on medication, and which type of medication, I'm going to leave that part out, and I certainly address that in the Hashimoto's workshop. But we're going to talk about how to boost your thyroid with nutrition, with lifestyle changes, and with mindset. And I hope that you join me for those other 3 parts if you are someone who has hypothyroidism, because I think it'll be very, very important. And again, if you want to check out my course, I'll leave the link in the video on the comments, and you can certainly go and check it out. It's a self-paced course, and it's a workshop. So I kind of go through and I give you a workbook, a PDF, and we go over the workshop together. And I think it's incredibly valuable. Thank you today for your time.